Hello and welcome to Claus YouTube channel. I am Brigadier Rakesh Bhatia. Many of our viewers may know me because I run a channel named Brig Speak along with Brigadier P.S. Gotra, which covers the military history for the upcoming DSSC entrance examination. I have gone through the notes which have been prepared by Claus and I found it extremely good for students to carry out a quick revision. I decided to pick up few selected questions and answered them for you and also given you a sort of extra information so that you can remember the answers to these questions and also add few of these points which are being covered today while answering few other questions. I will show you few slides where the questions are mentioned and then we will make an answer. Also give you the model answer how you should attempt to answer a question. Firstly, our students should remember that any biography, the qualities of that person should be very, very clear to you while you're reading about the personality. Use these points while answering all other questions. In fact, these should be at the back of your mind while answering all questions and check whether you can include these qualities of General Giap while answering one of the questions. First of all, he is known world over for his strategic brilliance. He was a mastermind which actually defeated French forces. Students will recall that it was the first Indochina War where the French, who had colonized the Indochina area, including Vietnam, who were defeated in Vietnam and followed by Laos and Cambodia. So it was the strategic brilliance of General Giap which was at play. His tactics were very, very innovative. He pioneered, in a way, guerrilla warfare and unconventional tactics. Even today, all major armies, including USA, who has had taste of his innovative tactics during the Second Indochina War that was fought between the USA and the communist Vietnamese. He was resilient and determined. His leadership and vision was exemplary. It inspired and unified the troops towards common goals. As you are aware, his organization Vietmin was a volunteer force, and many of the Vietnamese voluntarily not only joined but showed attempts to achieve common goals. He was extremely adaptable, and of course, his patriotism cannot be doubted. Educated and intelligent person who had a keen understanding of military theory and history. No leader can be successful until unless he possesses psychological acumen. Jal Jap was skilled at leveraging psychological tactics which demoralized his opponents. Resourcefulness, he made effective use of limited resources whichever he had. And of course, his influence and legacy has left a lasting impact on military strategy and Vietnamese history. With this, I come to the first expected question, which is Jal Jab's brand of revolutionary warfare is often described as developed and practiced warfare. Discuss the characteristics of Jab's guerrilla warfare and tactics employed by him. First of all, we must understand what is guerrilla warfare. It is an irregular warfare where small groups of combatants use tactics like ambushes, sabotage, raids, hit and run strategies. This sort of warfare is employed against larger traditional military forces. While in our own country, Shivaji, the way he fought the Mughals was a prime example of how guerrilla warfare is launched and what are the results which can be achieved by waging guerrilla warfare against a larger military forces. Guerrilla warfare relies on support of local population, detailed knowledge of terrain, and extremely high degree of mobility and flexibility. What does it do? It wears down the adversary through continuous harassment and psychological warfare. This is leveraged by agility and element of surprise. So, guerrilla warfare is to counteract their smaller number and limited resources and defeating a larger army. General Giap's case, he had a knack of paying special attention to administration and logistics, moving troops rapidly under seemingly impossible conditions, where the enemy was not expecting at all that Vietnamese are going to, they used to suddenly emerge. But for an army to fight, they need arms, they need ammunition, food, and medical. Napoleon said an army marches on its stomach. And as I mentioned, General Giap was master at arranging logistics anywhere at any time. General Giap's second quality, which is often spoken about, is his organizational efficiency. He was master at mobilizing and motivating. Even the units which were badly beaten, they could regroup and in very, very short time and were ready to fight again. A common military saying is that a strength of an army lies in its capacity to recover, reorganize, and fight back with renewed vigor after every setback. Ability to operate in hostile area, it is the major principle which a successful guerrilla operation is to adopt in order to be victorious. As Mao said, that guerrilla must move amongst the people as a fish swims in the sea. Surprise and deception. Giap's campaign deception was noteworthy. He demonstrated in Dien Phu, the French and the Vietnamese in this war were totally exhausted and bankrupt as far as material resources were concerned. But the victory went to a side which was better able to adapt to the situation, hiding successfully its internal difficulties. Another example of Giap's deception was the timing of attack at Tet Offensive in 1968, which started at the beginning of a major holiday, again when nobody was expecting him to launch an operation. Protracted war is another quality of guerrilla warfare. They tend to wear out a larger, better equipped army. Like in this case, they've done it with French as well as with the USA later. Even the Sino-Vietnam campaign, if you read, it was the militia who held the Chinese very close to the border and did not let Hanoi fall as per the plans of China. Again, quoting Mao, protracted war will wear down the enemy and preserve our strength. The next question that I want to tackle is, throughout his military career, the base of Giap's strategy was borrowed from Chinese so-called three-stage strategy. Explain. Before I answer this question, I just want to recall that though General Giap and Mao never met each other physically, but they shared ideological similarities. They never operated together in any military campaigns, but they shared ideas and strategic thoughts. The communist movement and their interaction within international communist circles during the mid 20th century was there. The three-stage strategy is primarily attributed to China, but it had a lot of similarities with Giap's strategy, which was at display throughout his career. Let's see what is three-stage strategy. The three-stage strategy, the first is strategic defense, the focus of which is on survival, consolidate bases, and build up strength. Once you've done that, you launch guerrilla warfare to harass and exhaust the enemy and secure and expand your areas of influence. And the aim is to establish your own stronghold, gain popular support, thereby weakening opponent. A classic example is the long march which Mao undertook after they lost to the KMT in the initial stages. The next stage is strategic stalemate, also called guerrilla war. Now, from the strategic defense, it is a transition to offensive action, and while you continue to build strength. The shift is towards mobile warfare, combine guerrilla and conventional military operations, and this is the time when you start engaging enemy directly. The goal of strategic stalemate is to erode enemy's ability to sustain the conflict, create conditions for decisive breakthrough. And the third stage is strategic offensive. Now, this is a full scale offensive. The aim, the objective is to achieve decisive victory and seize forever. The tactics used is you concentrate forces for major offensive, use conventional and unconventional tactics, and overwhelm enemy. The goal is to seize control of territory, overthrow existing regime, and establish revolutionary control. As I said, if you see few of the videos which were there in the BRICS Speak in the initial stages, you will very clearly realize that how Mao's Communist Army was able to defeat the nationalist army of Chiang Kai-shek using three-stage strategy. Having handled this, let's talk about Giap's Viet Minh strategy for warfare. It had two strategies or struggles, which are Dao Tran, which basically is a Vietnamese word which means struggle. The question is asking you to explain this. View Nag Giap theory says that the approach has to be comprehensive. That is, you have to have military, political, economic, and social dimensions. Protracted war, we have already spoken about. The viewers will do well to understand what I had said earlier. There are few qualities and few phenomena which you can use while answering different questions. Protracted warfare is one of them. Giap also believed in people's war, where he said that mobilize civilian population in support of the resistance. The communists call it militia. The PLA has it, Vietnamese has it, and even Russia has it. The tactics has to be very, very flexible based on battlefield conditions. Strategic offensive means employing decisive attacks to achieve significant gains. Now, this was the quality of Giap, who could choose the correct time to launch a decisive attack, thereby gaining out of proportion gains. Political warfare in communist country, you cannot separate political warfare from conventional warfare. Basically, you use propaganda and psychological operations to influence morale of the enemy. The two elements of strategy, that is political and armed, the Thran are the jaws of a pincer which the communists used to attack the enemy. The dualism of Dao Tran is essential. None of them, that is, political struggle or the armed struggle, can successfully win the war alone. The phases of military struggle include avoid decisive combat, revolution enters into mobile warfares, a blend of conventional war and guerrilla action, and then enter into the offensive stage. Again, pay attention. This is exactly what the three-stage strategy I had explained few slides back. In phases of political struggle, you act among the people and troops in communist controlled areas. Action against the enemy soldiers called troop proselytization. That is basically winning the enemy troops with your ideology. And you also act amongst the enemy people. So there are own people, there are enemy troops, and there are enemy people who have to be won over using propaganda and psychological warfare. This is included in the political struggle. Having seen that, the next question I will just give the headings. Briefly describe Giap's first counter-offensive against the French. In this, you include military's expansions and setbacks, which Giap undertook during the counter-offensive against the French. Talk about expansion of forces, professionalization, which means formal training for leaders and acquisition of Chinese weapons, enhancing capability. Now, all these actions Giap undertook after he was defeated in the first phase and he launched the counter offensive against the French. There were heavy losses, 6,000 to 9,000 troops were killed, 8,000 were wounded, and over 600 soldiers were captured. There were strategic failures, setbacks in attempting to clear Red River Delta. So despite all this, get back to the innovation, motivation of General Giap and his organization ability. He was able to motivate enough troops who came in for counteroffensive. They launched a counteroffensive and thereafter defeated the French. What were the reasons for failure of this Red River campaign in 1951 against which he had launched the counteroffensive? First of all, Giap gave interior line advantage to French. Now, what does interior line advantage mean? I'll explain it in the next slide. Look at these rectangles as troop deployment. The one which are given are in red color are the troops which are deployed in the interior lines. That is, when they have to switch forces from one place to another, the distance which is required to be covered is much less. Compare it with troops which are deployed in blue or represented by blue colors. They are on the exterior lines of deployment, where during the war, everything starting from switching of forces to supply of uh, logistics is more time consuming and can be easily targeted by those troops which are deployed on the interior lines of deployment. It was one of those rare occasions when Giap underestimated French strength. He lacked flexibility and he failed to exploit successes. There were poor coordination. It was again very rare for Giap to have centralized command, which the junior leaders could not take initiative and the coordination was extremely weak. The logistics were inadequate, the intelligence was faulty, they misjudged French ability and deployment, including reinforcement. Even they did not work on the local support, and they failed to protect themselves during retreats, thereby losing momentum. Now, why I included this question was, look at the failure. What was the reason of failure? Giap, the qualities that I spoke about in the first slide, all of them have been violated in the Red River Campaign of 1951, which led to the fall of Giap or loss of Vietnam in fight with the French. Now, this, however, in the counteroffensive that he launched, he was able to correct all these mistakes, and hence the counteroffensive was successful. With this, I come to the end of answering 5 questions for you. All these questions are covered in detail in the notes that have been prepared by the clause. I'll request our viewers and the aspirants of DSSC to please approach clause on through their website. We will also give the contact details in the description. Keep working hard. Keep concentrate on the on consolidation at this stage, and all the best. Do well. Do watch my channel called Briggs Speak, and Jai Hind. All the best.